What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my betting breakdown video for UFC Vegas 86. We got Joe Pyfer going against Jack Hermanson.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out.
And we are back for another betting breakdown video this week. We are back in the Apex for a 14-fight card. In my opinion, it's kind of sketchy. There's a lot of untrustworthy fighters on this card. In matter of fact, we have the most untrustworthy fighter in UFC history in Michael Johnson, right? So it's one of those cards. It's an Apex card, but it should be fun. We get some fights on Saturday, and we get 14 of them as well. So there's definitely some spots sticking out, and we're going to break it all down from a betting perspective, and a betting perspective only. If you do want a further, more in-depth breakdown on why I'm picking who, I did post a full card breakdown and prediction video on Monday. Also went live on Friday for some final thoughts. Other than that, I do want to shout out Prize Picks. If you guys have not checked out Prize Picks yet, now is a perfect time. They're doing a promo for Patrick Mahomes to get more than 1 yard, or more than 0.5 yards. So he needs 1 yard. And I quit doing NFL content like 3-4 years ago, but I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes can get 1 passing yard. So that's kind of like a free square there. If you do want to check that out, use promo code DFSBTN on Prize Picks. You'll get yourself a 100% deposit match. And if you're already on Prize Picks, use that free square. Pair it with something with the Super Bowl, or pair it with something for the fights on Saturday. I know I took advantage of that. Other than that, leave a like on the video, subscribe here to the channel, leave a comment. Always helps out as well. So appreciate you all hanging in with me here on a Saturday. Looking forward to these fights. All right, so I say we get into it. We're going to start with these prelims. We have Daniel Marcos going against Arichi Long. We got Daniel Marcos minus 270. We got Arichi Long plus 230. So I'm not doing any parlays on this card. Like, I really wouldn't, to be honest. But if I was to do a parlay, I think Daniel Marcos would be that guy in the parlay. The only thing that concerns me about Daniel Marcos at minus 270 is this is a fight that I primarily think takes place on the feet. And this is a fight that I think goes the distance more often than not. And at that point, the decision's going to be in the hands of the crooked, corrupt judges who are blind and half the time are probably not even watching the fight. So that's a little scary when you're laying almost minus 300. On top of that, all the parlay money is on Daniel Marcos. I've seen like pretty much nobody on Arichi Long this week. So I don't know. I think Marcos should get it done. He's the much more skilled fighter, but minus 270, what are you going to do? Hyder Emil going against Fernie Garcia. You got Hyder Emil making his debut. You got Fernie Garcia coming in here on short notice, up a weight class. Speaking of that, like we saw Fernie Garcia at the face-offs, and they were about the same size, which is kind of concerning there. I like Emil as a fighter. It's just I have a weird feeling about this fight. Like Fernie Garcia's 0-3 in the UFC. He hasn't won a fight yet, but in all three of those matchups, these guys were kind of taking him down, and that's not really Emil's game. Emil's going to come forward the entire time, land a lot of volume, eat one to give one. I think it's going to be a fun fight, but I don't know if I want to lay minus 195, really anywhere near minus 195 on Hyder Emil here. So I'm going to pick him to win, but don't love that price tag, to be honest. Next, we got Zach Palga going against Bogdan Guskov. We got Zach Palga minus 130, Bogdan Guskov plus 110. I think there's a couple different ways to play this fight. If you're on the Palga side, live bet would be a good look, I think. Like, if he doesn't get his head taken off in the first couple minutes, he's going to win the fight. Bogdan Guskov has atrocious cardio. When he's winning fights, he's winning them in the first round. So, yeah, if you like Palga, maybe live bet, maybe sprinkle the 2-3. The 2-3 props on Palga aren't that great, to be honest, so I'm not touching those. Bogdan Guskov KO1, I think that's probably his win condition. That's plus 310. I thought about it, ended up passing just due to the fact that I think Palga's going to do everything in his power to make this a horrible, terrible fight. He's probably not going to want to engage with Guskov, kind of like the Jordan Wright fight, which rightfully so. I mean, that's smart. Push Guskov against the cage. Don't strike with him at range, and he probably wins the fight. So, although I think Guskov's live for that KO1, it's just I'm not sure Palga's going to give him many opportunities. So it's a pass fight for me. Next, we got what I think is like one of the higher level fights on the card, and Jeremiah Wells, Max Griffin, a fight that absolutely should be on the main card. I'm not sure why this fight's on the prelims and Brechek Pateria is on the main card, but it is what it is. This fight's great. This is a fight where, people are kind of split on either side. And yeah, it's a close fight. Jeremiah Wells minus 150, Max Griffin plus 130, and you can make a case for both sides. Max Griffin's a very popular dog this week, and that's because he's the more experienced fighter, the bigger fighter. I think he's going to be the minute winner on the feet, the better striker, but you got Jeremiah Wells on the other side, where this is a guy I just don't know if I want to bet against. Jeremiah Wells hits like an absolute truck. Jeremiah Wells extremely physically strong. It doesn't look like this guy would have good cardio, but he does. He really does. He can go 3 rounds, and I think this does go 3 rounds. I think it could be close as well. I think it could be like the big moment winning of Wells versus the minute winning of Max Griffin. Maybe Wells can mix in some takedowns as also. So, yeah, it's a fight that Max Griffin at, plus 150, plus 160 had some interest, but at the end of the day, I don't really want to bet against a guy like Jeremiah Wells who can shut your lights off at any point. And, there's a path for Jeremiah Wells for sure. It's the wrestling, and this guy can wrestle. So it's a fight I'm just going to sit back and watch as a fan. Don't really see a need to put any money on it. Same with this next fight, although I do unfortunately have a bet on this fight. Devin Clark, Marcin Prachnio. I hate this matchmaking here. These are two guys that I think everybody typically looks to fade. I mean, look at these guys' finished losses. Devin Clark's been finished in 7 of his 8 losses. Marcin Prachnio has been finished in 5 of his 7 losses. You got Devin Clark as a minus 230 favorite, which, Devin Clark's a guy you either want to bet as a dog or just bet against him, to be honest. So, but with all that said, like what I do like here is I think Devin Clark is very live for a late finish. I think the Devin Clark round 3 decision at plus 100 makes a lot of sense, but like Prachnio, I don't think his cardio is good at all, especially when he's wrestling. Remember the Philippe Lins fight? Philippe Lins tried to take him down a couple times, and Lins isn't the best wrestler, right? But Lins had some success, and we saw in that second round, Prachnio was death-gassed, absolutely death-gassed. Luckily for Prachnio, so was Philippe Lins, right? So I have a feeling if Devin Clark comes out here, pushes Prachnio against the cage, pushes the wrestling, Prachnio is going to be exhausted. So I think Devin Clark's live for a late finish. I think the round 3 decision makes some sense. I did sprinkle the 2-3 though. Round 2, plus 900 for a quarter unit, and then round 3, plus 1,200 for a quarter unit. I think Devin Clark is going to be very live once this fight gets extended and once Prachnio starts to slow down. Moving on, we got Loma Lookboonmee going against Bruna Brazil. We got Loma Lookboonmee minus like 300 on some books. Bruna Brazil plus 245. Don't lay minus 300 on Loma Lookboonmee. I laid minus 250 on Loma Lookboonmee against Elise Reed, and she won the fight, but like she lost the first round. I was like, what the heck is going on? And at that point, I was like, I'm never laying this price tag on Loma again against anybody. Here she's minus 300 now. Especially after the weigh-ins, like I wouldn't do it. Bruna Brazil looks 2 weight classes bigger than Loma, and I don't think it's going to matter too much. Loma's typically smaller than everybody, but still, that's kind of terrifying where we're talking about laying minus 300. But yeah, Loma's the better fighter, higher volume on the feet. It's not that hard to have higher volume than Bruna Brazil. Bruna Brazil looks off. Thus far in the UFC, she's very low volume. She looks like she's just very uncomfortable in there. And it's weird because I was actually impressed with Brazil outside the UFC and on the Contender Series, but it doesn't look like she really, I don't know, she's fighting completely different. She's fighting a little bit more tentative than you'd like to see. So Loma should be higher volume. I think Loma can mix in takedowns. I think Loma wins, but minus 300, what are you going to do? Not even a parlay piece for me. Moving on, we got Balaji Oki going against Timothy Kwamba. Another late notice replacement. Balaji Oki was supposed to take on Damir Hadzovic. Hadzovic pulled out, and it's a step up in competition for Balaji Oki. Anybody would be a step up in competition compared to Damir Hadzovic at this point. Instead of Timothy Kwamba. I think Kwamba's a really good fighter. I think both these guys are. I think in terms of like skill for skill, these guys are fairly close. I think they're both solid fighters. It's just you got Timothy Kwamba, who's coming in here on very short notice. I don't like that. Going to be a tad undersized here. He just fought recently, though, so I'm not sure how that's really going to affect him. But Yeah, nothing's really sticking out here for me. I mean, it's probably dog or pass, but I would kind of want a bigger price tag on Kwamba, to be honest, since he has taken this fight on like 4 days short notice. So I don't know. And then even like the over potentially, but with the way Balaji Oki fights, I'm not sure I love that. It's just a pass fight. I mean, I would have liked to see the Hadzovic fight. I think it was a great spot for Balaji Oki, but this is a completely different matchup and a much tougher matchup at that. We'll see what happens, but I'll sit back and watch. All right, guys. This is going to be the featured prelim. There was a lot of passing on the prelims, and after talking through the fights, I'm sure you can see why. Like, my goodness, I think the prelims are filled with landmines this week. I really do. So, caution on there, but I do have a lot of bets on the main card, and we'll get to those now. So, feature prelim, Carlos Praches, Trevin Giles. Yeah, I like Praches here. I like Praches here quite a bit. You can't be too confident in him, though, is because how many times have we seen these Dana White's Contender Series guys come in here, overhyped, big favorites, and lose? The answer to that is a lot, like a lot of times. So I don't want to be like too crazy confident in him, but man, this guy's good. Carlos Praches, he has incredible power, incredible striking, 78-inch reach. He can knock guys out in so many different ways. I've seen him knock guys out literally with a jab. I've seen him head kick opponents, multiple opponents. I've seen him land, nasty knees. And, Trevin Giles, I think, is a good fighter. It's just the durability of Trevin Giles. Giles has been finished in all 5 of his losses. Praches, he is a BJJ black belt, so I think the submission could potentially be in play, like a club and sub, or even just a knockout. Like, Giles has been subbed 3 times, believe it or not, and Carlos Praches has a couple submissions on his record, but more so a knockout guy. What I like here is, I was looking at the fight won't start round 3 earlier in the week, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I don't really think Giles has much finishing upside in those first 2 rounds, really at all, to be honest. Like, Giles has, his last finished win came a while ago against Bavon Lewis, and that was in the 3rd round. So instead of playing the fight won't start round 3, I'm like, okay, what is Praches round 1 or round 2? And it's plus 112, which I think is pretty solid considering his inside the distance line is around like minus 155, minus 160. And I see him finishing Giles within the first 10 minutes here. I just think he's too powerful, too dangerous. And then what I also like are these 2-3 sprinkles on the sub for Carlos Praches. The reason being is he is a BJJ black belt, got his black belt a long time ago, I believe. I was checking his Instagram. And on top of that, Giles loves to get subbed, and more specifically, Giles loves to get subbed in the 3rd round. It's happened twice against Cummings and Mearshart. I'm hoping it happens in the 2nd here, but that's why I'm sprinkling 2nd and 3rd. So, yeah, I think knockouts most likely, but I mean, these sub props are ridiculous. Praches sub 2, 0.15 units, 2,900. And then Praches round 3 sub, 0.10 units plus 4,400. So a quarter unit total on the sub props, and then 0.75 units on Praches round 1, round 2. Next, we got Rodolfo Vieira going against Armen Petrosyan. And yeah, so I had a couple bets last time these guys were supposed to fight, and I'm running those same exact bets back. The bet was I have Rodolfo Vieira to win in rounds 1 or rounds 2, 1 unit on that at plus 195. I like that. I think if Vieira wins, it's in the first, probably the first round, but the first or second round. And then if this fight does get extended, if this fight does reach the 2nd round and Vieira is not able to submit Petrosyan, I think Petrosyan is going to be very live for a late finish here. Petrosyan hasn't shown it in the UFC. All of his fights went to decision. But outside the UFC, he finished everybody. I mean, I think he had a 100% finish rate before he came into the UFC. This guy throws with a ton of power, and I just think there's going to be a massive striking discrepancy here. So if Vieira is not able to submit Petrosyan, probably in that 1st round, Petrosyan should be able to take over and really beat this guy up. Like, the striking is just night and day here, to the point where I do think a late finish is very much in play for Petrosyan. So I'm on the 1-2 for Vieira. 1 unit plus 195, I think that covers Vieira's win condition. And then these late sprinkles on the Petrosyan KO are pretty solid. Plus 1100, Petrosyan KO 2, quarter unit. Petrosyan KO 3, plus 1400, quarter unit. Last time it was plus 1600, so that sucks, but it is what it is. I'm on the KO 2-3 for Petrosyan, and the Vieira round 1, round 2. And hopefully one of those hit, and I'll be happy. Next, we have Michael Johnson going against Darius Flowers. Yeah, Michael Johnson, if you guys have been watching the sport for a long time, Michael Johnson is the most inconsistent fighter in UFC history, it's not even close. Like, it's not even debatable. There's not even a close second that comes to mind. The close second is actually probably Trevin Giles, to be honest, and he's on the same card. But no, I typically try to stay as far away from Michael Johnson fights as possible. I think I retired from betting Michael Johnson fights back in like 2019. It was that Stevie Ray fight where he was on his way to winning, ended up losing. There was also the Thiago Moises fight where he was on his way to winning, ended up losing. That's what happens a lot with Michael Johnson. He's on his way to winning and he ends up losing, and that could potentially happen here. But, I think this is Michael Johnson's easiest matchup in a very long time against Darius Flowers here. Flowers just doesn't have great cardio and especially doesn't have great durability. You see it there. Flowers finished in all 6 of his losses, 5 of them coming by submission. So what I like first and foremost is violence. I think the under 1.5 is fine. I see a lot of people playing that, and rightfully so. It's a Darius Flowers fight. I am on the fight won't start round 3, minus 162 for 1.5 units. I don't see this fight lasting 10 minutes. And then I'm also on Michael Johnson round 2, plus 700 for a quarter unit. Michael Johnson round 3, plus 1150 for a quarter unit. I think it's round 2, to be honest. I think Johnson finishes Flowers in round 2. But that round 3 plus 1150 quarter unit on that. And then I also have a quarter unit sprinkle on Michael Johnson to win by submission plus 1800. Kind of like the Molly McCann sub last week, where I'm not betting on Michael Johnson because he's a elite BJJ black belt. I think he's probably a brown belt, or he might even be a black belt at this point, but I'm not betting on him for his BJJ credentials, skills, all that. I'm betting on it because Darius Flowers loves to get submitted. I mean, he gets submitted like it's his job. He goes out there, and if Michael Johnson even attempts a submission, he's probably going to insta-tap. So, yeah, I could see like a club and sub. I could see Flowers getting hurt, wrestling, Michael Johnson getting a guillotine. And like I said, if Johnson even wraps up the neck a little, like he's tapping. So I think knockout's probably more likely, but my goodness, 1800 for a submission prop against Darius Flowers. I got to take a shot on that. I hit the Jake Matthews submission prop last time out. Let's see if Johnson can come through and tap this guy out. All right, next we got Gregory Rodriguez going against, and yeah, by the way, I have way too much freaking money on Michael Johnson fights. Dang it. So we'll see if that works out. Anyway, Gregory Rodriguez going against Brad Tavares. I like Rodriguez here. I like him quite a bit. I think it's a great matchup for him in a sense that, he's going against Brad Tavares, and Brad Tavares is just not dangerous. He's not at all. So Rodriguez is going to be able to kind of walk him down, show him no respect, and not really have to worry about what's coming back at him. Like, what's been the downfall of Rodriguez his entire career? Getting knocked out, but he's going against Brad Tavares, so I feel like he's just going to walk this guy down, show him no respect, like he did against, Julian Marquez, like he did against Jung Young Park, like he did against Chidi and Jaquani. And Gregory Rodriguez is super dangerous. He hits like a truck, and I have a feeling, well, I don't have a feeling, I know. Brad Tavares looks like he's declining. I mean, he took a ton of damage against Dricus. He looked terrible in the Weidman fight. He's been knocked out 4 times. He's been hurt a ton. He's taken a ton of damage. I think Rodriguez knocks him out, to be honest. I have 0.75 units on Rodriguez inside the distance, plus 155. I didn't go with the knockout prop because there's literally not much of a difference. And Rodriguez, although has not subbed anybody in the UFC, it could happen. I mean, he's an incredible grappler. I don't expect it, but, I would just take the inside the distance, if anything, just because there's not much of a difference between the KO and the finish in general at this point. So taking Rodriguez inside the distance, 0.75 units, plus 155. Next, we got Robert Brichek going against Ihor Potieria. So I talked about not liking a ton of parlay pieces on this card. The under 1.5, minus 250. If you're looking for a parlay piece, it's not the worst parlay piece in the world, with the way these guys fight. I think Brichek wins this fight, wins it by first round knockout, which even that, it's like plus 170, which is terrible, to be honest. But, that's how he typically wins fights. I'm not touching anything in this fight. Ihor Potieria showing up on short notice, down a weight class. He missed weight. He looked terrible on the scale. But at the same time, Brichek's proven nothing. He's fought nobody. It's a pass fight. It's not even dog or pass. It's a pass fight for me. If anything, violence. But the fight doesn't go to decisions, minus 1,000. So what are you gonna do? Nothing really. Under 1.5 as a potential parlay piece. That's about it. That is about it. Moving on, we got the co-main event. Dan Ige going against Andre Fili. So I like Dan Ige here. And there's a couple spots that stick out. So what I like about Dan Ige is this guy's next level durable, probably one of the most durable guys in the entire UFC. 7 losses, never been finished, never been knocked out, never been subbed. Andre Fili, on the other hand, he has been knocked out. He has been subbed. He's been finished in 5 of his 10 losses. He's taken a lot of damage. He's been hurt a lot, dropped a lot, knocked out a lot. And Dan Ige hits like a truck. I think the big difference maker in this fight is going to be the durability, and it's going to be the striking defense. Andre Fili is very hittable. I've really questioned the chin. Dan Ige is more defensively sound, and he has a great chin. So I think these guys are going to throw down. I don't think Fili's going to wrestle. Does he have it in his back pocket? Sure. Is he going to wrestle? Probably not. He hasn't done it in like 5 years. I don't expect him to now. I think this is going to be a war. And in a war, give me the much, much, much more durable and, quite frankly, the more dangerous guy, and Dan Ige. Dan Ige hits very, very hard. I like Dan Ige by knockout. It's plus 320. Plus 320 at the moment, which is crazy with the way this guy hits on FanDuel Sportsbook. Ige KO plus 320. And then I also like the Ige finish only, minus 200. I have that for 1.5 units. So I'm on the finish only, 1.5 units, minus 200. I love that, just with how durable Ige is. And then I also like the KO for Ige, plus 320 for a half a unit as well. I think he knocks out Andre Fili here in this one. And then we got the main event. We got Joe Pyfer going against Jack Hermanson. We got Joe Pyfer minus 235, Jack Hermanson plus 200. Yeah, so there's some spots sticking out. First and foremost, I love violence in this matchup for a multitude of reasons. The biggest reason is Joe Pyfer. This guy has what? Was it 12 fights? Maybe 14? Yeah, 14 fights. 14 fights. He has been to the third round once, and he hasn't been to a third round in 6 years. It's been a long time since he's been to a third round. We have 5 rounds here, obviously. You know, what does Joe Pyfer look like in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round? We really don't know. Pyfer's been finished in all of his losses. Hermanson's been finished in 5 of his losses. Hermanson's getting up there in age, 35, 36 years old. He's coming off of a decent-sized layoff and injury as well. I think Pyfer has a really good chance to go out there and starch Jack Hermanson in the first 2 rounds, the first 10 minutes. But if this fight does get extended, right, I would not feel comfortable laying minus 235 on Joe Pyfer in this fight reaching the late 2nd, the 3rd round especially. If Joe Pyfer's exhausted and you got Jack Hermanson on top of you in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, he will finish you. A lot of people probably don't know this because Jack Hermanson has been fighting some really good guys as of late, and he's a really good finisher, but Jack Hermanson has some of the best ground and pound, in the division. I mean, this guy's ground and pound is no joke. Again, we haven't seen it in a while, which sucks, but when he gets on top of guys, the ground and pound's vicious, in elite grappling game as well. The problem with Jack Hermanson in this matchup is he's older, and he doesn't have great wrestling. He's not going to be able to take Pyfer down at least early. So I think Pyfer, the most likely scenario is he knocks him out early, but I think these Jack late props are very much in play. I posted on Twitter on Monday, I'm like, man, I'm not saying Jack Hermanson wins, but what I'm saying is these late props are just crazy, insane prices, and I sprinkled them. So first and foremost, I like the under 2.5. I like the fight won't start round 4. I did play the fight won't start round 4, 2.5 units, minus 164. Pyfer hasn't seen a 3rd round in 6 years, never seen a 4th round, minus 164. I love that. 2.5 units, my biggest play of the night. And then I'm also on Hermanson 3, 4, 5 sprinkles, 2,200 round 3, 3,300 round 4, 3,500 round 5, a quarter unit on each. If this fight reaches the 3rd round, I'm going to feel very good about all of those. I don't think it does, more likely than not, but if Jack is able to kind of drag this out, those will be very much in play at ridiculous prices. So give me violence in the main event, and there you guys have it. I'm going to do a quick recap of the bets. Main event, fight won't start round 4, 2.5 units, minus 164. Hermanson, round 3, 4, 5 sprinkles, quarter unit on each, 2,200, 3,300, and 3,500. Ige finish only, 1.5 units, minus 200. Ige KO, half a unit, plus 320. Rodriguez inside the distance, 0.75 units, plus 155. Flowers Johnson fight won't start round 3, 1.5 units, minus 162. Johnson sub, quarter unit, plus 1,800. Johnson round 2 and round 3, quarter unit on each, 700 and 1150. Vieira round 1 to round 2, 1 unit, plus 195. Petrosian KO2 and KO3, quarter unit on each, 1,100 and plus 1,400. Carlos Praches wins in round 1 or round 2, plus 112, 0.75 units. Pracha sub 2 and sub 3, 0.15 units on sub 2, 2,900. And then 0.10 units on round 3 plus 4,400. And then finally, Clark wins in round 2, quarter unit plus 900. Clark wins in round 3, quarter unit plus 1,200. Bunch of plus money sprinkles, kind of like last week where, I had a lot of bets not hit, obviously, but the 2 that hit gave me a winning night. Molly McCann sub plus 850. Charles Racky KO plus 600. Had the under as well. Had Molly McCann inside the distance. So it only takes one. It only takes 1 or 2. And that's what I'm aiming for here. I'm aiming for some big shots, hoping my more confident plays come through, like the fight won't start round 4 in the main event. The fight won't start round 3 in the Johnson Flowers fight. And just hoping to hit some sprinkles as well. So there you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the card. We got UFC 298 next week. I'll be getting out some content for that as well. So be on the lookout. Like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Check out Best Bet 2 hours before fight time. Fights kick off at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Going to be going live at 2. And then lastly, be sure to check out Prize Picks. Use promo code DFSBTN. Get yourself a 100% deposit match up to $100. And use that free square on Prize Picks. Use that free square. Patrick Mahomes will get 1 passing yard. You heard it here first. Hot take. All right, guys. Best of luck. Talk soon. See you later.